Got where all the tubes were. But I just hit it. All right, my friends. I just pressed the Let's Go Live button, which means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet. And you know, it's been a couple days here, I know. And we got to make sure that there's no more federal agents clogging up the tubes. But it looks like things are working, which is tremendous. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gov't. I am a criminal defense attorney broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun, deep in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. And today, my friends, we are talking about exposure and being exposed. We've got two people we've got to talk about. Donald Trump, of course, has a lot of exposure. He is facing a prosecution out of Florida. And we are going to go through that because there was a new order that dropped just moments ago, which was an order from the court saying that Trump is not entitled to disclose any of the discovery that is coming his direction. So we're going to go through that in detail. The government prosecutors who we're going to learn, well, not learn about, we're going to identify them. Here, we've got notices of appearance from these lawyers representing the DOJ. They asked to limit what Trump could talk about. The judge just issued an order this afternoon detailing that, so we'll go through that. Trump's team also filed what's called a notice of compliance, meaning they're getting their security clearances in order. And we've got the actual arraignment docs that I wanted to go through because there's only certain times in American history where you're ever going to get to look at documents like this. It's absolutely nuts, but we're going to go through it. So we'll hit that up. Then I want to share a little bit about this sketch artist. And this sketch artist, this guy, William J. Hennessey Jr., you see him right here, nice fella, couple sets of glasses on there, so he can sketch appropriately. He's getting blasted. Apparently, he made Trump look a little bit too good. Trump's looking nice and young, a little thin there. Very powerful, young and thin. Ooh, Trumpy, look at that. Wow, that's a mantelpiece right there. So you see that this sketch artist is getting criticized, and he's now responding to that. They want Trump to look like this, which is what this Reuters sketch artist drew, and that's really what she wanted it to look like. That's what Trump should look like, according to them. So we'll go through that and detail exactly what's going on with that story. Then we're going to turn our attention over to Bill Barr, because Bill Barr, man, he was causing some headlines to be percolating over the internets, and we're going to go through this. I think he was on with whatever media company this is, talking about Donald Trump specifically for about like 9 minutes. So I'll go through it. He says a bunch of stuff here. The big one is that he thinks that the indictment on the January 6th stuff is coming soon. We thought it's been coming soon. He says, well, I think it's going to be like summer probably of this year. And we're thinking to ourselves, hey, Bill, it's, summer of this year. So is it, what do you think about it? Of course, he's not in the DOJ anymore. So he's just really talking, I think, from the whispers that he hears or just making stuff up. I don't know. But the polls are still working in Donald Trump's favor, and we'll get into that. Adam Schiff is asking a fun question, asking, how can you imagine, like, what would happen if Donald Trump won this and he weaponized the executive branch against his political opponents? Could you imagine that? If he did something like that? So we'll talk about that. Then we've got an update on Hunter Biden's former business partner. This guy right here, you see in the top left of this, is joined by this other person, I think is from Ukraine or something. And then right over here, we've got Joe and Hunty. And they're out just golfing away with, I think this is a Ukrainian person. We'll go through the story. But Comer has sent a subpoena over to Devon Archer. This was one of Hunty's business partners. And apparently they're cooperating on an actual sit-down interview to talk about all of it. We've got James Comer saying that the Biden family, the crime family, has inherited something like $20 to $30 million donos. And that's a lot of super chats, I mean, that's a lot here. I don't know how Hunter was getting those types of super chats, but that's a lot of super chats. And what was he getting for that? We don't know. But we do know that Congress is sending out a subpoena if Devon Archer doesn't comply, which means it seems like he actually is complying. So there's going to be some negotiations taking place between this guy and Congress, and I'm sure that the Biden crime family is not particularly happy about it. And now that all of this criminality is being chronicled. The big question is, should Joe Biden be impeached already, for crying out loud? Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene says, yeah, it's time. It's enough already. She's joined by Andy Biggs. They admit they don't have the votes. Republicans would like to see, I guess, more, before they do anything. But we've got some people from the Senate reacting. Senator Blackburn and Ted Cruz talking about the FBI. And we listened to them last week when they were grilling the FBI. So I've got some clips, some reactions, some follow-up to that. And then Byron Donalds noticing a little different trend here. One particular set of criminal defendants in America gets prosecuted very quickly, rapidly. If you're Donald Trump or if you're a J6er, you get the book thrown at you. They come at you hard and fast. If you're Joe Biden, though, or Hunty, then you can just skirt around the rules for what's coming up on a decade now and get away with it all. So, as you can see, my friends, we've got a lot to get to today. We've got 5 full segments to attend to. And if you want to be a part of the program and join us for even more fun stuff, head on over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have an amazing community over there. We have the chat on our private Telegram group. If you're a member, whether you join on YouTube or join on Locals, you get a bunch of extra stuff, including our after party after the show. You get our member-only streams where we hit some docket updates and take a look at what is happening in the mornings to start the day off. It is the Trump docket updates is something we're also hitting. When we don't hit it here on the show, we're going to do daily updates and just keep tabs on what's happening on the Trump docket and others in the mornings at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We'd love it if you joined us and help support the show, meet other good members, and have some fun while we're at it. Now, because we have so much to attend to, we got to make sure we're healthy and fortified. There's a lot of things that will knock you off your health and your wellness out there in the world. One way we can be supportive of our bodies and lose those leftover pandemic pounds is by thinking about Field of Greens, because we are all sick of the ads for weight loss pills and fad diets. We've all been there. We've all done that. They just don't work. But you know what does? Eating healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day, just like Mom told you. Do that, and the weight would probably fall off. But look, vegetables, not a fan, and fruit, who has time to prepare that every day? It's 5 servings. It's a lot. Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula of very specific fruits and vegetables that you will not find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you'll look and you'll feel healthier fast. But the greater proof comes at your next checkup. When you walk in there, your doctor takes one look at you and he says, "Wow, you've lost weight." Whatever you're doing, keep it up. And so let's get you started. Head on over to fieldofgreens.com. Save 15% off your first order with code Robert. Code Robert will help you save. Load up your cart. It's not just real organic superfood in Field of Greens. There's other great products. Check them out. Find what you need. Fieldofgreens.com, and you can save 15% off with code Robert. The vegetables want to be eaten. That's why they're here. All right. And so now it's time to get into the business on the day, because we've got a lot to attend to. And Bonnie on Locals told me, "Hey, Rob, summer doesn't start for 2 more days." Well, in Arizona, as soon as it crosses 100, basically summer in my book, but I think Bonnie's technically right. I don't know how the seasons work. It's way over my head, complicated. All right, let's get to it, my friends. Donald Trump is being prosecuted out of Florida. We're waiting for all sorts of orders to come out from the judge, and a big one dropped. Trump has been ordered not to disclose discovery in his case. A lot of limitations that have been ordered by the judge in what's called a protective order, saying, Trump and your defense team, you can only do this, you can't do that. And we're going to go through it in detail because this was something that the government requested. And we'll look at their order first before we go through the actual order that came out from the judge. And then we'll review the Trump arraignment documents that came out, including his release conditions from earlier in the week. But the prosecutors who were behind the prosecution, as we know, special counsel Jack Smith. If you look at the docket, there were a bunch of other prosecutors who jumped in on the case. We're familiar with some of them here. We've talked about Jay Bratt. Jay Bratt was one of the individuals that Congress people said were improperly pressuring other attorneys to give their client up. Essentially, in this case, it was Waltine Nauta, who was, his lawyer was being almost threatened, coerced with a potential clerk judgeship in D.C. And so there was some allegations of impropriety there. Karen Gilbert was the other prosecutor we talked about that apparently back in the late 2000s, about 2009, if I recall correctly, she and her other prosecutors sent in informants to try to undermine a defense attorney and their team, and they rejected their attempts. It all came out at trial, and Karen Gilbert got reprimanded and reassigned within the DOJ. So we've got a couple of real winners on this team, and they are prosecuting, trying to stop Trump. And they submitted this as part of their initial filings. They do not want Trump talking about this case. Here is what they submitted to the judge. It's 4 pages out of the Southern District of Florida. It's United States of America versus Donald Trump and Waltine Nauta. And here's what they say. They say, Your Honor, the government, Jack Smith and special counsel, we respectfully move for an entry of a proposed protective order. We don't want Trump to talk about this stuff. Now, they say the government has conferred with the lawyers for Trump and Waltine, and they have no objections on this motion. All right. So a lot of people in the media, in fact, if you go over to one place here on the internet called the Drudge Report, you'll see this. They say the DOJ wins the first round. They're kind of gloating, right? Trump is now ordered not to disclose the classified documents. DOJ wins the first round. But there wasn't really a contest here, as we can see. They weren't really fighting over this. Donald Trump and Waltine Nauta, they have no objections, all right? So the government said, hey, guys, we want to put a protective order on this case so we can limit some of the information. And Trump and the defense, they said, okay, that's fine with us, no objection. So it wasn't even a battle, right? This went in front of the judge, and the judge just agreed to it. On June 8th, a grand jury in this district returned a 38-count indictment. Trump is charged with retaining national defense information. They say that they're charged jointly with conspiring and all of these other charges. We've got all 38 of them we've talked about. They say that the defendant's lawyer, Stanley Woodward, has not been admitted yet, so they'll be working on that. Here's what the government says. To Trump's team, they say the government is ready to provide unclassified discovery to the defense. These materials, though, they include sensitive and confidential information, including the following stuff. We've got PII, personal identifiable information. We have information that reveals sensitive but unclassified investigative techniques, right? And that's kind of a catch-all thing. It's my sources and my methods, as we always make fun of the FBI for. Everything needs to be protected because it's investigative sources and methods and techniques. Got it. Non-public information relating to potential witnesses and third parties, including grand jury transcripts and so on, financial information of third parties, third-party location information, personal information contained on electronic devices and accounts. They say all of this stuff that we're about to hand over to Trump is pertaining to ongoing investigations, and if it's disclosed, guess what, my friends? Compromised. Going to compromise those investigations, if anybody knows. And they might also, look at this, and it might identify uncharged individuals. Now, that might be standard language, or there might be other people who are going to be charged. And we've got a lot of questions about whether Trump is facing another indictment out of D.C. over the January 6th saga, which I'm sure is only coming soon. So they say, as a result, Your Honor, the government proposes protections against the dissemination of these discovery materials and the sensitive info they contain. Accompanying this motion is a proposed order. And for the foregoing reasons, we ask that you enter this, an order limiting the disclosure of these discovery materials. And zooming out, I maybe should have hit this at the start of this, but discovery materials are basically the case file. You know, as a criminal defendant, when you're being prosecuted, you have a right to review the material that you're being prosecuted with, theoretically. We'll see how far that goes in this case. Donald Trump is not the president anymore, and they said he was not supposed to have these documents. So can him and his defense see these materials now? Can they even see the evidence that is so classified against them? We'll see. This is the start of this. They're saying that what we do give them needs to be protected. And so it's unclassified right here. Okay, the unclassified, this is not even the sensitive stuff we're talking about yet. This is all the unclassified stuff. So when we get into the classified stuff, will we be able to see it? I doubt it, because we can't see any of this either currently. The bigger question is, will Trump even be able to see it? Will his defense attorneys be able to see it? Or will they try to keep it buried? All of this comes from Jay Bratt, the prosecutor who allegedly improperly prejudiced or made threats towards Walt and Waltine Nauda's defense lawyer, Mr. Woodland. Also signed off on by Julie Edelstein and David Harbach, who are assistants. So this is being spread like it's a giant victory. Just a reminder that the Trump team did not object to this, so they don't want this information coming out either. And this is what the judge responded with in her order. So coming out, actually, I think the order came from Judge Reinhardt, and it's a 5-page ruling. Here's the judge's order issuing and granting the protection. They say, upon consideration of the government's motion, here is what I am ordering. And the discovery batch, right, it's all the material. You've got a right to confront your accuser. You've got a right to see what the evidence is that is being brought against you. So they're going to define this for us. Here is what this protective order covers. This is what Trump can do or cannot do. Now, a big question I'm going to have as we go through this is, do these rules also apply to the DOJ? How about to the FBI? How about to Merrick Garland's office, Lisa Monaco, and everybody in there? Because we haven't seen really any problems with Trump leaking stuff or disseminating information. Most of the leaks in the stories we cover come from the Washington Post or the New York Times, because the special counsel's office leaks this stuff out, not Trump. So is this going to apply to them too? What are the repercussions for when the DOJ starts leaking? Here's the definition of discovery materials. It includes all non-classified discovery produced by the United States to Trump and Walt. When I say Trump, I'm just including Waltine Nauda in there. All unclassified, non-classified material. And let me say this, there's a distinction between the two. So non-classified might be things that are not classified, never were classified. Right? Unclassified or declassified would be things that did actually have a classified status and then had that removed. So if it was just not classified, just never classified, it was just a calendar or some post-it notes that didn't contain anything classified, it would fall into that category. So all non-classified discovery produced at any stage of this case are subject to this order, and they may be used by Trump and Trump's lawyer solely in connection with this case and for no other purpose and in connection with no other proceeding without further permission of the court. The judge is telling them how to store this stuff. They say the discovery materials must be maintained in the custody and in the control of defense counsel. All right, so now the lawyers get access to this. And we fought a lot over this. At the outset of this case, remember that there was a search warrant that happened. Trump had his residence raided. They took all these materials. The DOJ said, we want custody of this. We can protect this. We're the DOJ. You can trust us. And then Trump's team said, we don't trust you. Not only did you take what you claim was yours, which we don't think is yours, but you also gobbled up everything else. There were, 31 actual classified documents that were charged in this case? How many bins and boxes did they get? So there was a ton of spillage, a ton of overlap. There was a ton of material that was way overbroad. They didn't need to get all of it, but they got it all. And so Trump's team said, well, we don't trust that what you took there is going to be handled meticulously. We don't want you reading our attorney-client privilege notes or our executive notes, or maybe Trump's 2024 campaign plans are in there, right? We don't want you to get access to that stuff because we don't trust you, DOJ. But now we can see the defense will have possession of those things. We had a big fight over that. We had the whole special master debate, and there was, that went up on the Court of Appeals, and they ruled it back down that a special master was not appropriate here. But now that the case has been charged, we see that Trump's team now is entitled to actual possession of the materials. But again, we're still talking about non-classified now. We're still going to have a big fight over the other classified documents and the other status of, top secret, no foreign, all of those. I think we'll see battles over each. Defense counsel shall store the discovery materials securely with labels. And I wonder what kind of labels they want. Label makers are kind of a pain in the butt. That tape is so expensive. How long? Let's see. Make it clear that the materials are subject to the order. Electronic materials or copies of the discovery materials shall be stored in the same manner if they're on a hard drive. Now, here's where it comes to disclosure. All right. So let's say you're charged with a DUI, right? You want to see what the blood results say. You want to see what the police report says, what the traffic stop looks like. You want to see what your alcohol influence report looks like. It's called an AIR. It's your field sobriety test, your walk and turn, your one-leg stand, your finger to nose, all of them. How did you do on the thing? And so you get a discovery file. They give you this big stack of materials, or you can download it on the internet from an evidence.com locker or somewhere, right? You pull this material down. You look at it. The question becomes, what can Trump do with this material once it is in his possession? The judge says, defendants and defense counsel shall not disclose the discovery material or their contents directly or indirectly to any person or entity other than persons who are working with the defense employed there, persons who were interviewed as potential witnesses, counsel for potential witnesses, or any other persons that the court approves. Now, you'll notice this. It says defendants and defense counsel. Well, that's curious. What about the prosecutors, Judge? What about Jack Smith and U.S. Attorney's Office? How about them? Does this apply to them, or is this only applying to Trump? Because they leak all the time. Before providing materials to an authorized person, defense counsel must provide the authorized person with a copy of this order and obtain disclosure via a signed agreement. Yeah, man. So the defense attorney team then has to keep really good records on this. All right. So this kind of is putting speed bumps in the processing of their case. Well, if you want to show anybody this stuff, you got to get them to disclose and make them understand that they can't disseminate it either. Defense counsel shall keep a copy of each signed agreement to identify the individuals who received the discovery materials on the date that it was first disclosed. Man, this is a lot of work. Wait a minute here. I'm a defense attorney. I would be irritated by this on my case. I'd say, hold on a minute, Judge. You want me to keep permission slips and records for the disclosure? No disclosure is permitted to any individual who has not signed an agreement. Potential witnesses and counsel may be shown copies of the discovery necessary, but they may not retain copies without permission of the court. Okay, okay, fine. Is there another copy of this, Judge, that replaces this word defendant with prosecutor or prosecuting counsel or the prosecutor's office? Do they get the same rules? Do they have to also keep a little library of records, chain of custody, and permission slips for non-disclosure agreements? Because they leak more than Trump's team does. Every time we get a new story, it's going over to CBS or the New York Times. So they say defendants and defense counsel, an authorized person, shall not reproduce any of these materials. Don't copy this stuff. Don't disclose any notes. The discovery materials shall not be copied or reproduced by anyone except the lawyers and their team. Now, Trump specifically, Trump and Walt, they say Trump and Walt shall only have access to the discovery materials under the direct supervision of their lawyer or a member of their staff. So Trump can't even get a copy of the police report. If Trump's like, hey, can I get a copy of the police report so I can take it home and review it? No. Defendants shall not retain copies. Defendant may take notes about the materials, but those notes shall also be stored by defense counsel or a member of defense counsel's staff in the same manner as the discovery materials. That's incredible, man. Question. Do the prosecutors have those same limitations? Do the prosecutors have to have everybody store their notes? All of their underlings and interns from NYU Law School? Are they all going over there and storing their notes securely? No, of course not. They're leaking and going out to parties with the New York Times and telling them everything that's happening. No repercussions for them. Only the defense has their hands tied behind their back. And they have also to face the entire government on top of this. Can you see this crap, man? No disclosure to the public. They say the discovery materials, along with any information derived therefrom, shall not be disclosed to the public or the news media. Okay, well, tell that to the government, or disseminated on any news or social media platform. Oh, what do you mean, like Truth? Without prior notice and consent of the United States or approval of the court. So nobody can talk about it. This will only be applied to Donald Trump, mind you. If Trump posted anything, right, the government would flip out about it. But he can't leak anything because he's prohibited from doing that, but there's no limitations on the government here. Use of the discovery material in court. They say the procedures for using this material in court at hearing shall be determined by the parties in advance of the hearing. So Trump shall not disclose this discovery material in any public filing or any open court without notice or prior approval. Amazing. So a lot of this stuff is just going to be filed under seal in addition. So when they make arguments, when they say, hey, we got a motion to dismiss that's being filed, here are the facts as to why we think the motion to dismiss should be granted, Your Honor. It's because documents 1 through 10 are personal records. Documents 10 through 20 are declassified material, whatever the justifications are, you get the point. And if they reference anything that's kind of factual that's in the discovery, guess what's going to happen on that document that we're going to see? You know what it is. We talk about it a lot here. Redacted! Oh, man. So even as we are assembling this case, even the filings, right, don't even include the data in the public filings. So just like we covered here with the Ghislaine Maxwell case and others, it's all going to be filing under seal when these things get going. They say within 90 days of the conclusion of all stages of the case, all discovery materials and any copies thereof shall be destroyed by the defense counsel or returned to the United States unless otherwise ordered by the court. The court may require a certification as to the disposition of the materials. So they really do not want anybody to have these materials in their possession. A knowing violation of this order by Trump or Trump's lawyers and any other person may result in criminal sanctions. Again, I must just be confused here. Surely they're also including the DOJ on this and the U.S. prosecutors like Jay Bratt and all of the others. Modification only by order of this court, and this is no ruling on discoverability or admissibility. This is just a protective order. This order does not constitute a ruling on the question of whether any particular material is discoverable or admissible, and the restrictions set forth in this order do not apply to documents that are or become part of the public record, okay? Nor do the restrictions limit defense counsel from using these materials in this case. Got it. Done and ordered by, remember this judge? Bruce Reinhart, United States Magistrate Judge, not Eileen Cannon. Bruce Reinhart was the same judge who issued the search warrant in this case. Very curious. So we have, what many would say is a standard order in a case, but what I see here is only limitations to Trump and his defense team. Trump can't even take notes on this case and bring them home. He can take notes, but the notes also shall be stored by the defense counsel. Okay, if Trump wants to take this home and think about it, sorry, only use your memory. You don't get your notes. We don't trust you with your notes, so your lawyers are going to get your notes, courtesy of Bruce Reinhart. Now, the U.S. DOJ, they can basically do whatever they want. In fact, I didn't see anything limiting them in any way, because our justice system, for some reason, doesn't think that they're capable of committing egregious breaches of ethical duties. But we know better. Now, Donald Trump, in order to access a lot of this discovery, is going to need security clearances. And we know that they keep saying that these are very serious national security documents about invading Iran and other countries. Well, the question is, what can we see, and can they get access to the actual materials? This is what Donald Trump and his team filed. Very short filing, just a simple notice of compliance. They're telling us that Todd Blanche and the rest of his firm are filing a notice of compliance. The judge issued a prior order requiring all attorneys in this case to contact the litigation security group over at the U.S. Department of Justice to expedite the necessary clearance process for all team members anticipated to participate in this matter and to start getting them security clearance. File a notice of compliance. They've done that. You see two of Trump's lawyers, they say this is to notify and to certify that our office has contacted this group from the DOJ for the purpose of obtaining the necessary security clearance for team members to participate. Signed by Todd Blanche and by Christopher Keese, two of Trump's lawyers out of New York, and Coral Gables, Florida, saying that we're getting our security clearances and we'll be on the case soon. And so two other documents hit the docket. I wanted to share them with you. You can see it's not every day we get a minute order from a federal court on a criminal charge for an initial appearance arraignment for a former president. Pretty incredible. I've seen many documents like this in my day, but to see it memorialized for Donald Trump is surreal. This comes from Magistrate Judge Jonathan Goodman, who did the arraignment. The time of the arraignment was at 3 p.m. It's in Cannon's courtroom with this case number, Trump born 1946, had a recent birthday. Happy belated birthday, Mr. President. Now, the bond was set at a stipulated agreement, which means the government agreed to release him on personal recognizance. There's all sorts of other limitations that they could have checked off here on the left. For example, report to pretrial services, go to drug treatment, don't use alcohol. They could have said no firearms, Trump. You can't contact anybody. They could have checked all these things off. And guess what? When this happens again in DC, maybe they will. They could have said curfew. They could have said your travel is limited. You could have said you have to go seek mental health treatment there, Trump, or get a job. We'll see if any of that happens. This was signed off on by the judge, but it was entered with the following notes. They said, Brady order is given. And this is the judge telling the government, by the way, you know you've got obligations under Brady, which means you've got to provide exculpatory evidence to the defense. If you have anything that exonerates Donald Trump, give it to him. Understood? Cool. Entered it on the record. They also say that the defense counsel stated in open court that they are going to be permanently appearing. Donald Trump then got arraigned. So that means that these lawyers are not going anywhere. Okay, they are going to be on this case, even if Trump decides I'm not going to pay him or whatever. If that happened, they can't get off the case for a fee dispute. They're on there for a long time. They waived the reading of the indictments. Okay, you have the right to go through the full indictment and have it all charged, arraigned, airing it out almost in your direction. They didn't do that. They said most definitely entering a plea of not guilty. They demanded a jury trial, which is just standard. Sometimes they'll say, they demanded a jury trial. It's like, yeah, I know. That's what you get in this type of a case. You can't demand a bench trial, for example. I mean, I guess you could maybe stipulate to one, but that's way further down the road. It's just standard language. Standing discovery order was requested, and we read through the final order. Both sides agreed to a personal recognizance release, which again, I don't know if that happens in DC. It would be shocking to me if they asked for release conditions in DC when he ultimately gets indicted. But if they impose any of these restrictions like surrendering, do not obtain passports or travel docs, surrender your passport. What if they did that? They could. They've got the legal right to do it. Release conditions are standard. Special condition says fact witnesses on the list, don't talk to them. Talk to them through your lawyers. Understood? Understood. Quick proceeding, only 35 minutes, signed off on by the judge. Shout out to our court reporters. We have the best court reporters here. Stephanie McCarn, court reporter, marking all of this good stuff down. And there was one other document. This is the bond filing, the appearance bond here. This is Donald Trump saying that he is appearing on personal recognizance. Satisfies this. So here are the standards of the bond. The conditions of the bond are that Trump must appear before the court, right? Trump, we're going to let you out of here, but you got to come back, okay? Got to come back. Says you can't, so they're not applying this one. They're not, which means he couldn't travel outside of court, right? May not travel outside of Florida. They didn't apply that one. May not change his address, must cooperate and give a DNA sample, all right? These are all standard conditions, but they didn't apply 2, 3, and 4. They did apply 5. Don't violate any other federal law. And if you get in trouble with the law, notify us. Other special conditions, none of them were checked for Trump. No location monitoring program, but they could. Okay, this is what they do for most defendants, I'd say. Give us your documents, report to pretrial services as directed, call 7 times a week, and 1 time a week by telephone, right, in person or whatever. Maybe those numbers are flipped. Refrain from alcohol use. Look for a job. Get in school. Don't talk to your co-defendants. They could have selected all of these things. They could have put them in a residential reentry center, a halfway house. Look at all of these things. So none of this obviously applied. And here we have it, my friends. Sign for your paperwork, Mr. Trump. And he did. Trump reads this. I have carefully read. I understand the appearance bond. 7 pages has been read to me, translated into my language. I'm aware of the penalties if I violate my bond. If I'm acting okay, all right. Sign it, Mr. Trump. There it is. Signs for his bond paperwork. Donald Trump. It's a surreal thing. Judge signs off on it, Jonathan Goodman. This is a historical document in American history, right? This will show up in law school books for the next, I would imagine, the next, I don't know, probably a couple of years until the country divides itself. So actually, you probably won't learn about it much longer because America is on the decline, as we see happening right now. So, my friends, that is the update on the docket. Now, if you would like to get daily docket updates, join us at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where we will check in with this case more regularly. When there are big updates, we will drag those updates out, of course, to discuss here on the live show. But if it is a slow day and we're looking at some minutia that doesn't really necessitate an entire topic, join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where we will get into more of the nitty-gritty. We'd love to see you there. All right, and so while we're on this topic, we've got to take a look at this sketch artist. Donald Trump has been looking pretty good, hasn't he? We've been seeing him on the campaign trail, looks vibrant, full of energy, high energy, and he's not alone in that belief, because there is another person called William Hennessey Jr., who is the sketch artist who has been drawing Donald Trump, and he thinks he looks pretty good too. That's why his sketch artists are making him look nice and young and thin. And you can see some of these photos. Trump's looking good, very regal almost, nonplussed. He's sitting there. He's been indicted twice now. He knows there's a 3rd indictment, probably a 4th indictment coming, and he's looking pretty good there. Doesn't look like the left wants you to think he looks, a big caricature of the big giant orange Cheeto, as they always like to call him. Here are a couple other photographs too. Look at this, very powerful. remove some of those age lines, and he's standing firm, neck poised, good posture. Looks like it came from this image. Here's the full scene. Trump stands out in court. Walt Nauda's there. Very nice sketch, I'd say. You see Trump's lawyers, Trump out there in the nice blue, looking good. Now, the left didn't like that, right? They're not happy with this. They want Trump to look like this. This was a sketch that was created from Jane Rosenberg. And here is what she drew on Twitter. This came over from Reuters. It says Donald Trump during his arraignment. This was the one in New York. Courtroom sketch by Jane Rosenberg. Look at that. Now, apparently, she took this drawing off of this image, and I don't think it was accurate at all. Trump here almost looks like he has a little bit of a smile going on there, kind of like a little bit of a smirk, like, what is this? So she was trying to capture this image. This guy's laughing over here. So is this other defense attorney. And so Trump, I think, has a little bit of an expression that's a grin. And so what happens is Reuters draws this one out. Jane Rosenberg draws this one. And that's what they want to see. But when you draw something that looks good, Trump looks like a nice, handsome presidential candidate. Very studious, too. Look at him. Writing notes, which are now illegal. Or maybe that's his signature. Signing the document. Yes, I understand. There was a reaction. The left very unhappy with this guy. And the sketch artist is now responding. Critics rebuff him from portraying Trump as too young and good looking. They hate that, man. The sketch artist, he said, quote, "It's rare to get feedback on his work. Nobody ever really comments on it at all." He said, "It's rare I get any kind of feedback." He's 65 years old, he told the Boston Globe. Hennessey was one of 3 artists who captured Trump's appearance. He was indicted on a number of charges. But the sketches are coming under criticism. Some on social media say that they made him look younger than his age of 77 and thinner than in reality. Here's Trump. Hey, looks pretty good. Somebody said on Twitter, is this William Hennessey? Is this his audition to do Trump's official White House portrait? They got Trump looking like Prince of Tides, somebody said. So even the sketch are being hyper politicized. And he said this one looks like his son. Now, Hennessey told the Globe that he's been getting a mixture of responses. Here he is in the courtroom. Actually, this was when he was there doing Amber Depp Johnny Hurd case. Some said he looked too thin, too young. Some said he looked too good, telling the outlet that the negative comments appeared from the people who didn't care much about Trump. So he said that a day in Miami was pretty stressful, but that he drew his sketches just how he saw them. He says, look, everybody, I don't editorialize, all right? I just draw what I see. Trump's looking good, man. They're not happy about it. They're trying to even get to the sketch artists now to get them corrupted. But Trump looks good, going to continue to look good. Shout out to William J. Hennessey, Jr. All right, and so with that little fun segment out of the way, let's get into this one with Bill Barr, because Bill Barr was on a tear this weekend. Former Attorney General Bill Barr, who used to work for Trump, has been taking it hard against him. He has been hitting the airwaves. He's got a book to sell like they all usually do, but he said a lot, including the fact that Donald Trump, he alleges, lied to the DOJ during this document scandal, and that this document scandal is really going to be a big detriment to Trump and his efforts to get himself reelected. But Bill Barr also says that the indictment for the J6 saga is coming soon. And as we know, Bill Barr is no longer with the DOJ, so we're always asking, where does he know this information? Or how does he know that those documents are so seriously bad and awful and that Trump really is a monster, even though Bill Barr acknowledges that the DOJ and the FBI have a long history of being problematic against Trump, long history of making up charges. Somehow, though, this case is much different. They lied in 2016, okay. They lied in 2020, okay. But this 2024 campaign, which is really what this is now, is suddenly above board. It's all legitimate, and nobody should even question it. But he says the indictment is coming soon, and it's going to be out of D.C., which is going to be a different jurisdiction than Florida. We're going to see what those judges do. But we've got reaction on this because the question is there any consequence to this? We know Biden really doesn't want to campaign in a traditional sense because, well, he can't hardly even talk. But is this war on Trump, on MAGA, on extreme Republicans, on homegrown domestic violence and all of the things, is it going to move the needle? Is it going to win them the White House again? The media is fretting because they're saying nothing is hurting Trump's polls. Maybe they should try another indictment. So Bill Barr really gets into this, and here is what he said when he was on with Face the Nation at CBS.
We're joined now by William Barr. He served as Attorney General under former President Trump. His book, One Damn Thing After Another, is now available in paperback. Good morning, Mr. Barr. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting me, Bob.
Former President Trump now says everyone except you says this indictment is about election interference and should not have been brought. He said, you know, the indictment is total BS. That's our shorthand for what he actually said. He's also known for watching the Sunday shows, and he obviously saw your appearance on another network last Sunday. Why is he wrong about this?
Well, this is not a circumstance where he's the victim,
really?
This is government overreach. He provoked this whole problem himself. Yes, he's been the victim of unfair witch hunts in the past.
He's doing it again. He's doing it again. Yes, they did it that time and this time and this time, but not this time. I can't believe it.
But that doesn't obviate the fact that he's also a fundamentally flawed person who engages in reckless conduct and that leads to situations, calamitous situations like this, which are very destructive and hurt any political cause he's associated with. And this was a case that entirely of his own making. He had no right to those documents. The government tried for over a year quietly and with respect.
That has not been litigated yet, just as a little point on that, right? He says he's not entitled to those documents. He's been saying that for a long time. But there is, I would argue, valid legal debate about that has not been exercised in the court of law. Why? Because the president hasn't ever been criminally charged like this before. There is no precedent. So every time somebody comes out and tells you that they know exactly how this is going to go and all of these documents are clear as day, I don't take that as being honest because this is unprecedented. And Trump, as the former president, I know how much it irritates these people to admit this, but he was the president, okay? That is the root power of the United States executive branch. And he did a bunch of this stuff when he was president. So that gives him new novel claims that have not been decided yet. Now, if there's a decision and it goes against Trump, I could see exactly how that could go, and I could see the logical conclusion behind that, and I could see it go the other way too. But this reminds me of the election stuff. Okay, Trump made an election challenge. It may not have been the best election challenge, or you may have disagree with the fundamental judicial underpinnings of it, legally speaking, but there was still ambiguity there. You still could make those arguments there. And by the way, Congress has even recognized this, which is why they're talking about the Electoral Reform Act. They know that as currently written, and even the Congressional Research Service knows, we've gone through those documents here at the time. When we were asking what are Mike Pence's powers, there was gray area in that. So they're talking about reforming that, so there is no more gray area. Trump and his team decided to exploit that gray area. They're allowed to do that. You might disagree with it as a matter of prudence or strategy, but that doesn't make it insurrectionary to, in an adversarial system, push the law to the limit. So here, it's the same dang thing all over again. And Bill Barr wants to sit here and tell us, look, I respect Bill Barr, I appreciate his work, but I understand that he's an institutionalist and he's going to defend the DOJ over anybody who's challenging the DOJ ever. And we can't forget that when he is trying to come on here and pass off his credibility, his authority as a conclusion, because there is no conclusion on this yet. It hasn't happened.
To get them back, which was essential that they do, and he jerked them around. And he had no legal basis for keeping them. But beyond that, when he faced his subpoena, he didn't raise any legal arguments. He engaged in a course of deceitful conduct, according to the indictment.
Yeah, according to the indictment, and you're entitled to have the presumption of innocence, which you're not giving him right now. You're taking the indictment as fact, accepting it at face value, which is not how this system works, last I checked.
That was a clear crime if those allegations are true. And was outrageous.
What if they're false?
What he did was, according to the indictment, is he took the documents out of storage, led his lawyer to believe that he'd be conducting a full search of the boxes, and then caused his lawyer to file with the court something saying that he had completed a search.
How strong is the special counsel's case on obstruction specifically?
And we're asking about that, because how were those boxes moved, and did those boxes contain the classified documents, and did those boxes contain classified documents that were charged? Because my understanding is there's a broader number of classified documents than charged classified documents. So all of those boxes being moved around, can they create a chain of custody to the charged documents through those moved boxes, which would then contribute to the obstruction charge?
Well, it's very strong because a lot of the evidence comes from his own lawyers. And furthermore, there's evidence of him saying things that are completely incompatible with any idea that this was an innocent document dispute.
Do you believe?
So the lawyer thing, by the way, I think was an improper breach of attorney-client privilege. And they did that in D.C., remember. This case that Bill Barr is talking about is being prosecuted in the Southern District of Florida. Hey, Bill, why did they breach Trump's attorney-client privilege in D.C. then? Shouldn't they bring that, all of the evidence they got from that case or from that breach are being used in the Florida case? They say that Evan Corcoran went into D.C., sat down with special counsel's office, had an interview with them. The judge and the Court of Appeals there broke Trump's attorney-client privilege, which is one of the most sacred things ever. And then they took that from New York, or from D.C. rather, and then they used that in the Florida prosecution. And if Trump and his team can show that that attorney-client breach was problematic, according to the Southern District of Florida, not the D.C. judges, then maybe that evidence, Bill, gets thrown out. Okay, because whatever they gleaned from an improper gathering of evidence, right? If they break into your home and search your home without a warrant, and they don't have any exigent circumstances, and there's no probable cause reason for them to get in your house, and they find a bunch of drugs in there and charge you with the drugs, but there was no basis to get in the house in the first place, they had no lawful reason to get there, it wasn't in plain sight, right? And all of our criminal law friends out there can go through your constitutional and evidence law. But what are the ramifications for that, for the government, when they breach some constitutional protection of your privacy? They don't get that evidence anymore. They can't use those drugs because they shouldn't have been in your property in the first place. It's called fruit of the poisonous tree. You're not allowed to use it. So here, if DC improperly breached Trump's attorney-client privilege and Florida says, hey, you know, that was improper, we're not going to honor that, or there's some other challenge here, and everything that came after that conversation with Trump's lawyer was found to be evidence that is also fruit of the poisonous tree, then all of this evidence is not admissible anymore, which is appropriate because attorney-client conversations should be protected. They must be protected, but they breach them because the DC people want convictions. Trump was asking questions that don't sound good. But every single person who's been charged with a drug, not every one of them, but I'm being hyperbolic, but you get the point. They always ask their defense lawyer, but what if those weren't my drugs? Okay? And guess what? A lot of the time they were their drugs. And the judges don't breach attorney-client privilege because some defendant asked a lawyer about a possibility. Well, what happens if I say I was out of town? What happens if I was over here? Some people have asked me, what happens if I flee the country? And people have fled the country. Okay, these are things that happen in the court of law, and you're supposed to have a candid opportunity between yourself and your attorney to talk to them. But they said that Trump was engaged in some, additional criminality that has yet to be proven, and they're breaching all of these once sacred privileges. And then Bill Barr comes out and he tells us that, well, all of the evidence is coming from Trump's lawyer. Okay, but what if that evidence is not admissible, Bill? How about you stand up for attorney-client privilege?
If he lied to the Justice Department?
Do I personally believe it? Yes, I do.
And do you believe that he continues to claim that he has all these privileges and rights under the Presidential Records Act? Is he mischaracterizing the act?
Absolutely. The legal theory by which he gets to take battle plans and sensitive national security information as his personal papers.
And again, he's presuming a fact that's not in evidence yet. He's just saying that he's taken the indictment at face value. He says all of these documents are what they are, battle plans and stuff like that. We don't know that.
Is absurd. It's just as wacky as the legal doctrine they came up with for, having the vice president unilaterally determine who won the election. The whole purpose of the statute, the Presidential Records Act, was to stop presidents from taking official documents out of the White House. It was passed after Watergate. That's the whole purpose of it. And therefore, it restricted what a president can take. It says it's purely private, that had nothing to do with the deliberations of government policy. Obviously, these documents are not purely private. It's obvious, and they're not.
So now we have a separation of powers argument. I think we looked this up previously. The Presidential Records Act was an act of Congress. And the question is, can Congress limit what the executive branch does? Now we have a separation of powers problem. Congress says, hey, we can tell you what to do with your classified documents. We ask ourselves, wait a minute, who actually has root control, root authority over the executive branch? Does the president or does Congress? So if he's going to be telling us now that the Presidential Records Act can tell the executive branch exactly what to do, doesn't that make Congress a little bit more powerful than the executive branch? Isn't that a usurpation of power from one branch to another? Yeah, it is. It's not a constitutional amendment. So if Trump has root power over the executive branch, and Congress is usurping that power, then Trump can make a constitutional claim to the United States Supreme Court that says the executive branch's power was being encroached upon. The Presidential Records Act that tells me what to do with something I have root control over is invalid as it relates to this. That argument has not been made, as far as I know, and it hasn't because no former president has been indicted before. So Bill Barr, for some reason, I think forgets about the separation of powers or something like that. Presidential Records Act, 1978, and establishes a bunch of stuff. And yeah, it's great that other presidents have complied with this. It's great that they've all followed rules and done the thing by the book, the way the institutions want them to do things. But it doesn't mean that it's actual legitimate law as it applies to Donald Trump. If he exercises the maximum power, the maximum range of his authority, he can make these arguments.
Even now arguing that it's purely private. What they're saying is the president just has sweeping discretion to say they are, even though they squarely don't fall within the definition. It's an absurd argument.
Do you believe if he is convicted, he should serve his prison sentence?
Well, we haven't even gotten to the point of whether he's been convicted and also what his sentence should be. I don't like the idea of a former president serving time in prison.
Republicans remain
Bill.
Critical of the Attorney General who spoke out this week, as well as Director Wray at the FBI. They've rallied to Trump's side. Are they wrong to say that this Justice Department is acting in a political way?
Well, if they're pointing to this case, I think they're wrong. I think the department had no choice but to seek those documents. Yeah. Their basic argument really isn't to defend his conduct because Trump's conduct is indefensible. What they're really saying is he should get a pass because Hillary Clinton got a pass 6 or 7 years ago.
Isn't that equal justice? Isn't that equal standards? I mean, why is the FBI raiding his home but didn't raid Hillary's home? Don't we want equal protection under the law, Bill? You ran the Attorney General's office. You were the Department of Justice lead.
Now, I think, that's not a frivolous argument.
Of course not.
I'm not sure that's true. I think if you want to restore the rule of law and equal justice, you don't do it by further derogating from justice. You do it by applying the right standard here. And that's not unfair to Trump, because this is not a case where Trump is innocent and being unfairly hounded. He committed the crime. Or if he did commit the crime, it's not unfair to hold him to that standard.
You say Trump's alleged conduct is indefensible. So many Republicans continue to defend him. What will it say if the party, your longtime party, puts him forward as their nominee?
Well, that's the problem. I don't think they're actually defending his conduct, but they are saying it's unfair to prosecute him. But that then raises another question.
What?
Okay, if it's unfair to prosecute him, that's not the whole answer. The question is, should we be putting someone like this forward as the leader of the country, leader of the free world, who's engaged in this kind of conduct?
Oh, there it is. Okay. Right. So you see what it's all about. It's about the election. It's not about Trump's. He even really didn't want Trump in prison. He just said, well, you know, Trump did a bad thing and other people have done bad things like Hillary, but it's still a deviation from the norm, and so we got to be accountable. But, you know, setting all that aside, it is about the election, and it's really important to consider who we want in charge of this country, and definitely not somebody who's been indicted 4 times.
The other thing is, this is not just an isolated example. Trump has many good qualities, and he accomplished some good things. But the fact of the matter is, he is a consummate narcissist.
Whoa.
And he constantly engages in reckless conduct that puts his political followers at risk and the conservative and Republican agenda at risk.
Would he put the country at risk?
Yeah, he's definitely a narcissist. Unlike Joe Biden, unlike Bill Clinton, unlike Barack Obama, who aren't self-absorbed egomaniacs, right? They all are in that same category. Trump just has a little bit of a special flair and a flavor to it, but not unlike anybody else, including Hillary Clinton.
If he was in the White House again?
He will always put his own interests and gratifying his own ego ahead of everything else, including the country's interests. There's no question about it. This is a perfect example of that. He's like, he's like a defiant 9-year-old kid who's always pushing the glass toward the edge of the table, defying his parents to stop him from doing it. It's a means of self-assertion and exerting his dominance over other people. And he's a very petty individual who will always put his interests ahead of the country's, his personal gratification of his, of his ego. But our country can't be a therapy session for, a troubled man like this.
No, I guess we should just be like, I guess like a retirement home for Joe Biden. I guess that's what we should be. We should just wheel our decrepit old president around from room to room. And this country really, quite frankly, is really in charge, being led by the DOJ and the FBI and all the intelligence communities, who many people say now have dirt on Joe Biden and have leveraged their position to take control of the country. But this is Bill Barr.
This is not the only special counsel investigation, an ongoing one on January 6th. So many witnesses being called in. You were the star witness for the House January 6th committee. Are you willing to testify, or have you already testified before the special counsel?
Well, if they called me in as a witness, of course I would testify. But all I said was what I said, what I recounted in my book about this false story about a stolen election.
Have you talked to them in any way behind the scenes, if not formal testimony?
Well, I'm not going to get into any communications I had with the government, but I don't.
Oh, so Bill Barr is testifying now, it sounds like. I'm not going to get into any conversations that I had with the government. Very curious. Was he called in to testify on the January 6th grand jury that's going to be indicting Trump soon?
Expect to be a witness, but I'll be glad to be one if I'm called.
Okay.
Trump was just indicted and arraigned in the records case. Do you believe he's a target potentially in the January 6th case?
Yes, and I've said from the beginning, by the way, I've defended him when I think there's cases that are unfair, like the one up in New York and so forth.
Yeah, because that was a state-level prosecution. Yeah, that was Alvin Bragg. But if it's the DOJ, if it's the FBI, Bill Barr is an institutionalist. He protects and defends those prosecutions.
I've always said I think the January 6th case will be a hard case to make because of First Amendment interests, but I'm actually starting to think they will pull the trigger on that, and I would expect it to be this summer.
Oh!
Do you believe the Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis will indict Trump in Georgia?
Fannie is her name.
Yeah, I don't know much about her case. I don't know if it's a sound case or not. I'm skeptical about that. But
why are you skeptical?
Again, because of the First Amendment interest. We don't want to get into a position where people can't complain about an election and claim that an election
Trump
is
said
stolen.
on tape he wants the Secretary of State to find votes.
Yeah, I know, but there are innocent interpretations of what he said, which is, look, of all the votes that we think are bad, you certainly can find among them some that are slam dunk. But
very interesting. Again, he's almost poo-pooing the Georgia investigation here.
Whether that's the proper interpretation or not, I am more skeptical of that case. But on the other hand, I think it's likely that it will be brought.
Of course it will.
Former Attorney General William.
4 prosecutions. Sounds like he's a lot more interested in the federal prosecutions because, well, that's his institution. That's who he fights for. He's been a lifer there at the DOJ. As the DOJ and the FBI have become completely weaponized, as the Biden administration has been prosecuting their political enemies, in this case, it's Donald Trump. But now some people on the left are getting a little bit nervous out there. Here is Jen Psaki, along with Adam Schiff. And they're talking about a very, very horrific situation in which America becomes a government that prosecutes their political opponents. Could you imagine if we lived in a world where Donald Trump was prosecuting somebody like Joe Biden? What a disaster that would be.
I mean, and if there is an enemies list, you're probably on it. I'm sure you've thought about this. What could a Trump DOJ do to make your life difficult?
Well, they could do all the same things that Adam Schiff did to Donald Trump, which is creating fake hoaxes and using the DOJ and the FBI to go after him and dog his entire first administration.
Well, just the other day, Trump said I should be imprisoned. And of course, it's not the first time he's called for jailing me. And
didn't you say Trump should be in prison, buddy? What's good for the goose is good for the gander, as they say.
You have to wonder, could a President Trump, unshackled by any opposition, somehow use the Justice Department to imprison his enemies? There are a lot of things.
It's only fair, buddy. That's what your side is doing right now. You've got a bunch of your political enemies in prison. Just ask the J6ers.
That we have seen take place in this country in the last several years that we never would have imagined possible. We thought we were exceptional in the sense of this was a problem other countries had. It wasn't a problem in the United States of America. But we have seen since Trump's election the steady degradation of our institutions. And were he given the chance again, you can't bet against how he would try to abuse the Justice Department. But,
yeah, you mean like indicting a political opponent who might actually be winning against Joe Biden?
I would also say it's a badge of honor to be on his enemies list. As Franklin Roosevelt said, there are times when you can judge a person by the enemies they make. And I think they view me as a threat. They don't like the work I did on the January 6th committee or my work in leading the first impeachment trial to a bipartisan vote to convict. But it's not going to deter me. I will say this, though. It is occupying the nation's time when we have to focus on things like homelessness and the high cost of housing. President Biden is doing exactly what he should. Those are the issues I'm focused on. But these constant political attacks do soak up the time and attention of the public.
Yeah, it would be a real big shame if there was a weaponized DOJ in America. And golly, what would happen if Trump got his hands on it? I hope he does. And I hope that the Republicans do all the same things the Democrats have done right back to them. And I don't think that's good for America, but that's the only way that this cycle will go, unfortunately. And if one side's going to be exploiting it, I guess it better be ours rather than theirs. And if the Republicans don't figure that out, they're going to lose. And they are very concerned that they are not winning more handily. This came out from ABC this week. They're upset about the polls. Trump has been indicted twice now. He should be down like 20%, right? Who wants a felon, two-time felon, leading America, as they keep telling us? How could anybody do something so derelict? Well, the American people aren't buying it.
Let me try to put some oxygen back in the room. Don, I want to try to do another poll. I'll try to do this a little cleaner this time. But a poll from Quinnipiac on a possible Biden-Trump matchup puts Biden at 48%, Trump at 44%. This is a poll, again, taken largely after the indictment. I mean, that's got to make you a little nervous. That's within the margin of error. That is a statistical tie.
The race was close before the indictment. The race is going to be close no matter what happens.
So what does that say about Biden if he's barely beating or in some polls actually losing?
It says that the country is very divided. It says that the country is really looking to get beyond 2020. It says a lot about where we are as a nation, not where we are in terms of who's personally popular at this time.
What does it say about who we are as a nation? That we're all just a bunch of Trumpers or something like that? All right. So the January 6th indictment is coming soon. I am sure about it. I can't imagine that this is avoided. If they don't indict him for this, they are going to be in big trouble with their Democratic base. And so it's only a matter of time until it happens. All right, my friends. And now, speaking of the Biden family, big trouble for the Biden crime family. We know that this guy, Devon Archer, seen here on the far left of this photo in the same lineup with old Joe Biden and old Hunty Biden. We know that Devon is now cooperating with Congress, in particular the Oversight Committee, because he got a subpoena or a threat for a subpoena that we will review, but the subpoena has not had to have been executed or exercised yet because Devon Archer apparently is cooperating. So we're going to go through this story, but a little bit of background on who this guy is. He is a former business partner to Hunter. Now here is Hunter and Joe hanging out. Devon Archer, according to Breitbart, tells us that they are in talks to comply with the Oversight Committee subpoena, which we'll review. This is about knowledge about the Biden crime family's alleged $10 million Ukraine bribe and other additional transactions. We're going to hear James Comer explain to us might be as much as $20 to $30 million donos. On Monday, the House Oversight Committee requested that Archer testify, but he's negotiating a later deposition date. We're going to go through the subpoena. Archer is a Biden family business associate, and he's, quote, Hunter's best friend in the business. Was in legal trouble in 2022 for defrauding a Native American tribe. And he was ordered to pay $43.9 million back over to the victims. A lot of money. And we also know that prior to his arrest for defrauding the Native Americans, Archer served in 2014 with Hunter Biden on the board of Burisma, a Ukraine-based energy company. That's the same company that allegedly is in the FD 1023, which is the form that says that one of the top executives, presumably the CEO, at Burisma was interfacing with this confidential human source, communicating that he had paid Joe and Hunter $5 million apiece to get this prosecutor off their backs. Joe was vice president at the time, and guess what? The prosecutor went off their backs. Archer was by Hunter's side for decades. They attended Yale together in the 1990s. He went on to become the vice chairman for finance for John Kerry's presidential campaign that failed. He connected with college classmate Chris Hines, which was Kerry's stepson, and another Biden family business partner. Archer was an intricate member of the Biden family business, and he's going to be working with Congress now. Some of his largest deals involved Bohai Harvest, an entity controlled by Chinese interests. Breitbart said that in 2013, Hunter Biden helped start a Chinese private equity fund called Bohai Harvest. The American partners held their interest through a company called Rosemont Seneca Thornton. Senate investigations revealed that a Russian billionaire, Yelena Baturina, transferred $3.5 million to this organization, raising concerns about Hunter's relationship. And we know how bad this story is. Where there's a ton of smoke, there is traditionally fire, and Congress is on it. James Comer says that they've got evidence that there was $20 to $30 million of transactions that got paid over to the Bidens.
If this is all true about a sitting president when he was vice president, influence peddling, accepting money from foreign nationals so that he could turn around and make changes in policy for America so he could pocket the money, if that's true, why isn't he impeached already? And if it's true that the FBI is doing nothing about it, why isn't Christopher Wray on his heels as well?
Those are great questions I ask every day. Look, Christopher Wray has no control over the FBI. One thing that I've learned from dealing with Grassley's whistleblowers is that this is an an organization in disarray. No one has confidence in leadership at the top. You have bureaucrats, deep state bureaucrats, who are running the show. They're partisan. They want to get Donald Trump. They don't care what Joe Biden does because Joe Biden can be controlled. So we have issues with.
That is a big allegation, right? The DOJ, the FBI, the intelligence agencies, they have compromise. They have leverage on their own president because they know that they've got evidence of Joe Biden's collusion with foreign entities and bribes from Ukrainian Burisma businessmen.
FBI, but my investigation is about following the money. We're going to continue to follow the money. And Maria, I can assure you there's more money that we're going to be able to identify that was transferred between foreign nationals in other countries and the Biden family. This is going to be hard for Joe Biden to explain, and it's not going to go away. This is going to be an issue. And I think eventually the mainstream media will turn on Joe Biden and start asking the real questions. What did your family do to receive all this money?
Wow.
What number are you up to now? How much have you identified of the money he's taken in from foreign nationals?
We have more bank records coming in, but we're going to exceed 10 million this week, right. And I think we'll get up between 20 and 30 million dollars.
Okay, thank you.
$20 and $30 million donos over from some very, I'm sure, very gracious Ukrainian foreign business people, all going over to the Bidens. Just gifts. It was 10 million, now 20 to 30. Big numbers out there. But this is what Congress sent over to Devon Archer, and this is what prompted his cooperation. This came from the Oversight and Accountability Committee, James Comer, out of Kentucky, chairman. He sent this over to Mr. Schwartz, who is the lawyer for Devon Archer. He says, hey, Matthew Schwartz, attached is a subpoena from Congress. You don't like that. Anytime you get something like that, that's not a good thing, especially if you're Hunter's business partner. Saying that that subpoena requires Devon Archer's participation in a deposition. The rules say we can do this. Here's why we are. The committee is investigating foreign nationals' attempt to target and coerce high-ranking U.S. officials and their family members by providing money or benefits in exchange for policy actions. The committee is considering solutions. We have identified Mr. Archer as possessing information related to our investigation, and we want his testimony. Now, both information that the committee has reviewed and other public reporting indicates that Mr. Archer played a significant role in the Biden family's business deals abroad, including, but not limited to, China, Russia, and Ukraine. Additionally, while undertaking these ventures with the Biden family, your client, Devon Archer, met with Vice President Biden on multiple occasions, including at the White House. Mr. Archer's testimony is critical to the committee's investigation in Congress. They say that Mr. Archer was Hunter Biden's business partner in a number of transactions involving foreign nationals and foreign companies. He was associated with corporate entities that the committee has identified and the Biden family's role in each one of them. Furthermore, Devon, has significant information regarding the purpose of these companies and the relevant documents that we need. And so as part of this investigation, we want to craft solutions directed at fixing problems in the vice presidency. They say we've been investigating the national security implications of vice presidents, and we want to change disclosure laws. We also intend to craft legislation that would deliver more transparency to the American people. They say they want it to deter foreign interests and protect people in the presidency. And so as chairman, Comer says, I urge you to cooperate speedily and in good faith with the committee's subpoena. Please let me know if you have any questions. Sincerely, your friend, James Comer. Now, this is the actual subpoena. So this doesn't seem like it was complied with because this date is in the past. So the subpoena says, by authority of Congress to Devon Archer, this is a valid subpoena, right? So there's a lot of threats of subpoenas being flown around in Congress, but they are actually executing on them. Christopher Wray got one. He denied it. They tried to hold him in contempt. We'll see what happens with that. Here, Devon Archer got a subpoena, and now he's cooperating. They wanted him there before June 16th, on June 16th. Obviously, that date has come and passed. It did not happen, but they are still negotiating to get it done. This was to appear in front of the Committee on Oversight and Accountability for a deposition signed by James Comer. So presumably that is going to happen soon. And I cannot imagine that the Biden crime family is happy about that, because this guy, Devon Archer, has a long history with the Bidens. The question will be, what is he going to dish out to the investigators? I'm sure it will be worth covering, and we will. All right, my friends, and we've got one final segment now as we wrap it up today. As more evidence is revealed about the Biden crime family, the question is it time to impeach this guy already? They impeached Donald Trump for a fake hoax. Why not actually impeach Joe Biden for legitimate crimes? Here are several people from Congress who want to get started, including Marjorie Taylor Greene and Andy Biggs from Arizona, saying it is time. What else are the Republicans waiting for? If they're going to be indicting former presidents and presidential candidates who seem like they're at the front of the polls, what about striking back? Now, the Republicans here acknowledge that there's just not enough energy in the House GOP to get this moving forward. The question is going to be, what's it going to take?
Being paid millions and millions of dollars from all these foreign countries that we know they have no business to prove that they're producing a product or a service to be making all this money. Hunter Biden is a crackhead. His evidence that we have on him showing all of his prostitutes coming from Ukraine, coming from Russia. This shows that this man was only purely profiting by his father's powerful positions. Joe Biden absolutely should be impeached, but I got to tell you, Maria, so should Christopher Wray.
Yes.
Christopher Wray is no dummy. He has quite a law career. He comes from a very respected firm, King and Spalding, here in Georgia. This is a man that knows exactly what he's doing, and he's using the power of the FBI director's position to protect and hide the crimes from the American people. These are unclassified forms. Everyone should be outraged. I'm demanding impeachment. I'm with the American people, and it doesn't bother me that the conference is not there yet. I think it's the right thing to do.
Well, what's the process on impeachment? How does that start, Andy?
Well, we need to get a resolution to the floor, and I believe I'm where Marjorie is. Joe Biden should be impeached. First thing we would do is we should take a preferred motion to the floor, so it'd get priority, and then it goes to the House Judiciary Committee. We do our inquiry, and then we make a recommendation to the entire body. That should be going on forthwith. Unfortunately, I recognize what Marjorie does, that there's a significant number in our conference that aren't there yet. I'm not sure what's going to take to get them there, but impeachment is basically to remove somebody from office who's committed, who you cannot wait for the next election. And I don't know how we can wait for another 18, 19 months with Joe Biden in there when we know he's corrupt, and we don't know how compromised he is with places like China. We don't know if we're in Ukraine because he had some debts and obligations that he had to repay. All of these things,
or if the FBI has leverage over him for whatever reason,
come to bear on whether you impeach somebody. And I think Joe Biden has impaired our safety and our security and our prosperity as the president of the United States.
Exactly right. He has the FBI prosecuting his political enemy along with his DOJ, and the FBI is covering up for him. So as the Republicans are hot on the trail, trying to investigate exactly what the Biden crime family was involved in, we know that they're not being very forthcoming with America.
Well, indeed, he was protecting Joe Biden. This is why I followed it with saying, so what is your job? Is your job to defend the people of this country and the Constitution of the United States, or defend Joe Biden? And of course he said, well, I defend the Constitution and the people of the United States. That's our mission. But he is spending his time defending Joe and Hunter Biden in this instance. And he went on to say it was about the source and that it could be a life or death matter. And of course, Senator
Yes, we
Hawley
know.
followed up
Yes,
my
we
questioning
know.
by asking him. And Larry, in that, what did we learn? We learned by saying we had to defend the source, life or death matter. This is somebody they knew. It's probably somebody they trusted. And that person had come forward with
Paid him
this
200 grand.
information about Joe and Hunter Biden. And what they were trying to do is to keep it on the down low, keep it from coming to light. But Senator Grassley had seen the unredacted form, which is a 1023 form. He had seen that, and he knew what was in that form, and it was not what had been revealed to the House Oversight Committee.
Amazing. So they redacted and covered up documents, but Chuck Grassley had already known what was in the documents. So the FBI is not even helping. You know, Congress is asking for information. They are stonewalling every step of the way because that's information that they've got to use for themselves. It's compromise on Joe Biden and their efforts. Ted Cruz also confirming this. He says the FBI is clearly covering up for Joe.
Well, listen, the last week has been, we've seen bombshell revelations. We've had a whistleblower come forward who said that a confidential informant came to the FBI and gave the FBI testimony and evidence that Joe Biden, when he was vice president, received a $5 million bribe from a senior official at Burisma, the Ukrainian natural gas company, in exchange for official actions as vice president. That is a big, big deal. That was apparently memorialized in a report written at the FBI called an FD 1023. And so yesterday, the deputy director of the FBI was testifying in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and I tried to press him on this. And number one, ask him to confirm that the FD 1023 contains evidence that Joe Biden was personally involved in receiving a $5 million bribe from a foreign national. He refused to answer that question. I asked him if he would hand over the FD 1023 to the Senate Judiciary Committee. He refused to answer that question. Also, 2 days ago, Senator Chuck Grassley went to the Senate floor and revealed that there are 17 tape recordings of phone calls between this senior Burisma executive. 15 of those calls are with Hunter Biden. 2 of those calls are with Joe Biden personally. I asked the deputy director of the FBI, is it true that there's 17 voice recorded calls? He refused to answer. I asked him, does the FBI have those 17 recordings? He refused to answer. I asked him, will the FBI give those 17 recordings to the Senate Judiciary Committee? He refused to answer. And I got to say, Eric, it is infuriating to see the FBI stonewalling and protecting Joe Biden, covering up corruption in the White House. It is infuriating that this politicized FBI believes they are not accountable to anybody.
They're not accountable to anybody. What are you talking about, Ted? You guys have not done anything to them. They just show up there. They just bark at you guys and nothing happens. We'll see if anything does. I doubt it. So the question is, why is this happening, and where can you identify the double standards? One simple area, as Byron Donalds brings up for us, is in the double standards in the prosecution speeds. Not only do we see some people being investigated and prosecuted, but we see other people being investigated and not prosecuted. And that is also by design. Investigations for years and years and years. And guess what happens? Oh, yeah, people forget about it. Or statute of limitations expires and you can't prosecute it. Or your government Democratic slush fund operative known as Sam Bankman-Fried, and you get charges like yours just slowly dismissed and dragged out, right? The whole litany goes on and on and on. If you're a part of the favored defendant class in America, then you don't get prosecuted, you get investigated to death. But if you are in the disfavored defendant class, as Donald Trump is, as the J6ers are, as anybody who's ever shown up on a HGVE, DVE, RVE list knows, is in a disfavored position in this country now. And one of the variables in this disfavored prosecution is the speed. How quickly did they move against Trump versus how quickly and how long have they been delaying any Biden investigation? Because this is their campaign. Trump needs to be prosecuted. The intelligence agencies will cover up for the Bidens. The media will cover up for the Bidens. And you know what? Quite frankly, a big swath of the Republican Party is going to cover up for the Bidens as long as it hurts Trump. So the question is, are the Republicans going to do anything about it at any time soon? Is the House GOP going to step up? Will there be enough people to go to impeach Joe Biden? Whether he should be impeached or not almost doesn't even matter anymore, right? If they can just create fake hoaxes and impeach Trump over it, it's almost like the Republicans should just play the stupid game, even if it is wrecking American constitutional order. They didn't start it, and they've got to respond in kind, unfortunately, because they're dealing with people who don't value the sanctity of constitutional order. And so, my friends, that is it for us on the day. We are going to leave it there, but we covered, holy moly, a lot of ground. We covered impeachment allegations, attempts. We covered Hunter Biden and his business partner now cooperating with Congress and the DOJ. We've got Bill Barr saying the J6 indictment is coming soon and trying to blast Trump, even though he doesn't know much about this actual case. The Trump sketch artist got blasted for making Trump look a little bit too good. And we know that Trump has been ordered, only Trump has been ordered, not to disclose stuff about his case. Apparently, the government prosecutors are free to leak whatever the heck they want, whenever the heck they want, without any repercussions. And so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. Now it is time to see what you have to say over from our friends on YouTube, on Rumble, on Locals. And of course, we'd love it if you joined us on Locals, or if you joined us as a member on YouTube. You can join us on YouTube as a member, and we would love to see you there on our membership site. But now, my friends, let's see what you have to say about it. We had some very, very generous, very nice donos come in. And thank you to K Bean, who is modding up and clipping for us today. Thank you very much, K Bean. Sent in this one from Maggie M in the house. Thank you, Maggie. This has, I think this is what, a hippo? This is a hippo on an office chair who looks like they're making a pretty hard turn. I think those are lightning sparks on the office wheel. Sometimes I feel like that when I'm skidding in here to sit in my chair right before the show starts. Thank you, Maggie. Appreciate it. A Bad Poet says, Congress needs to legislate a way to remove security clearances from government agents who are guilty of high crimes, including removing qualified immunity, so that they could be personally sued for their crimes. Yeah. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And qualified immunity is a major problem in this country. It's been something I've railed against for a long time. I don't know who specifically you're talking about here. I was trying to think. Schiff, maybe? Schiff? Pencil neck? Maybe. Good to see you, A Bad Poet. I appreciate that. Patrick Parker says, Robert, can you ask if YouTube is blurry? Sure. Is YouTube blurry, my friends? That's the question from Patrick Parker. Let me know. Hopefully it's not blurry. Thank you, Patrick. And hey, holy moly, Patrick, 9 months, baby. Pfft, that's literally a child. We've been together that long. I mean, we'd have a child right now if we were biologists or something. Fred Pedamonte says, just watch Barnes. Is it blurry? No. Everybody says no. Just Cause says, nah, not blurry. Donna, no. Not for me, no. Not blurry here. Alan Shannon. Adam M says no. Arnold says nope. K Bean says nope. Oh, it might be your default settings. Yeah, mine's good, says Tony Hay. American Dreamer says, check your settings, Patrick. And Chris Banks says mine is only blurry when I squint. Oh, well, that's, yeah. Are you squinting, Patrick? Are you squinting? Don't squint. That's probably why it's blurry. Are you underwater? Are you watching the show underwater? All right. All right. Don't watch it underwater. It's best watched out of water. All right. Fred Pedamonte says, just watch Barnes's rant on the indictment. Watch it. Hey, speaking of Barnes and Company, we hung out with Viva here. Speaking of Viva and Barnes, check this out. If you missed this, Saturday night. I know I took, what was this? Friday night. No, what was this? Thursday night. Gosh, I can't even remember when this was. It's Viva. Guess who's in the house? So Viva was in town. We went out. We had a great dinner. He brought his daughter, who was here for a speech and debate tournament, and it was a ton of fun. Viva is the man. Viva's the real deal, my friends. And so if you're not already following Viva, he's right next door at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. And he is awesome, right? He's the real deal. You can subscribe to him on Rumble, subscribe to him over on YouTube. We had a ton of fun, and it was a great conversation. We talked about all sorts of stuff, talked shop a little bit. Here's another interpretation of this photograph. Yeah, you can see this one's pretty good too. Look at this. And look at the puppies over there. We weren't actually out here at this location. This has just been memeified by John McGarvey in the house. John McGarvey in the house, which was a ton of fun. Now, you know, at some point, maybe Viva and I will get a couple homesteads. This, I could see it. I could see it in the future, 5 years from now. You know, we get a couple homesteads out. I don't know where this is, you know. And then we we farm our crops together. You know, we farm our crops together. We're like, hey, man, how's your crops today? He's like, crops are great. How are your crops? I'm like, oh, well, you know, my crops are a little croppy today. You get it? He says, Rob, you know, and then the music fades out. I don't know. Maybe something like that. I don't know. Anyways, we had a great dinner. It was a ton of fun. So shout out to Viva. And by the way, if you're not already following Viva, you can follow him at the Viva Fry on Twitter, not .com. It's on Twitter. So it was a lot of fun. So shout out to our friend Viva on Twitter. And yeah, they're over at vivabarneslaw.locals.com and on YouTube. And Barnes is, man, he's been on a tear. So make sure you're following him too. He's on Twitter. Robert Barnes. Hey, Dolphin fan is the man who came in here. Catania Mama Italia is in the house. Welcome to our Membo, courtesy of Dolphin Fan is the man. Pyramid 7, Michael Allen is in the house. No Jabsky and Coco Hull all coming in into the house. Dolphin Fan, thank you very much, my man. Inviting 5 new Membos. Here, a bad poet says, do you think it's possible to time limit Judge Cannon do you think it's possible to limit Honorable Judge Cannon by getting the government, let's say friendly judge, to pass rulings before it hits her court? I see what you're asking. Yeah, so asking about that, the order we read that was very harsh on Trump but not on the government came from Reinhardt. Yeah, I think it's possible, but anything that needs correcting, I think she could correct. And honestly, Reinhardt might have spoken to her about it. I don't know. But I understand what you're saying. Before it gets to her court, maybe you go through a more favorable judge until it gets there. Yeah, thank you, a bad poet. This is a good theory. We'll continue to see how it unfolds for us. This one, hey, Pam Ronning. Pam Ronning became a supporter. Welcome aboard, Pam. And hey, if you're joining on YouTube, don't forget to grab the Telegram link. We are going over there after the show to discuss and debrief the program for our after party. So YouTube members, join us on Telegram. New World Dyslexicon in the house. Looks like a nice channel. Says, thanks for your work. Thank you. Thank you, New World. Thanks for being here, my man. And thank you for the dono. I appreciate that a lot. Michael Allen Hughes saying thank you to Dolphin Fan. Indeed, Dolphin Fan is the man. Clearly. And so thank you, Dolphin Fan. And Robert, coverage is awesome. Thank you, Michael Allen Hughes. And yeah, Michael Allen, you see that Membo dono, courtesy of Dolphin Fan. Looks good on you, Michael. A bad poet says, I think we had this one, says, Congress needs to legislate a way to remove security clearances who are guilty of high crimes, including qualified immunity. That one came in from a bad poet. Thank you, a bad poet. Appreciate that. This one came in from our friend Spuds. Says, is Trump setting up Joe to the same standard? I mean, not really, because he doesn't control the executive branch. I mean, he's demanding that he be held to the same standard, but he doesn't control the executive branch. I mean, when he does again, then yeah, then I think he can say, well, you prosecuted me, so now I'm prosecuting you, right? That's the threat. That's what happens. And Trump should prosecute Biden. It's just that it, and everybody, quite frankly. And it's a good reason to vote for him, because one side is going to be prosecuting the other side either way, and you'd rather have your side prosecuting the other side. They started it. It's their America. Ray Ronk, thank you, Ray. No question on that, Ray, but I do appreciate the dono. Thanks for sending that in. Patriot 1111 says the intelligence community and people with TDS, also known as Trump derangement syndrome, become twisty donuts to justify the prosecution Trump is over and over and over and never succeeded. I bet it hurts. Donut, like donut, Yeah, you're right about that. They do become twisty donuts, right? Like twisting themselves into pretzels, which are delicious donuts, by the way. The ones with the sugar sprinkles and the cinnamon on them. Pretty dang good. And they're contorting themselves like pretzels to justify the prosecution of Trump. They know it's bad, and they're trying to really lay it on thick, because when the pendulum swings the other way, it's going to be brutal. Here, Devon Archer is going to get eliminated, says Indoctrination. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Remember, we're talking about the Biden crime family, not the Clintons. Hopefully Devon Archer lives long and well. This one came in from Rocky Water. Sent this one, says, hey, Rob, great show. Appreciate it as always. Thank you, Rocky. I appreciate you. Says my comment. The quote, classified docs thing is all diversion. Focus needs to be on Biden impeachment and conviction ASAP. It's the only way any of this might actually get fixed. Otherwise, pardons all around. Yeah, a lot of the Biden focus has been evaporated by the Trump indictment, and I think that was by design. Soon as the FD 1023 form came in from the FBI, boom, Trump got indicted. Nobody talked about it anymore. Now, we're going to continue to focus on it. I agree. I think that it's a very important part of this piece. And the Republicans, I think, are onto something. They have a scent, and they are after it. So thank you very much for sending that one in. Rocky Water. That came in over on Locals. Very, very appreciated. Clumber says, hey, Clumber, this looks like a new name. Welcome to Locals. Says, just a question. Are they doing this to Trump now to prevent him from trying to get the Biden records of crimes after his administration? So to get the Biden records of crimes after his administration. So there's one thesis, and I don't know if this is what you're referencing, C. Lumber, but there's one thesis that the FBI, the DOJ, they wanted to go get evidence of their own criminality back, right? They wanted to go get documents that they thought Trump was keeping as safeguards, as things that would exonerate him. They wanted to go reobtain those documents. I don't know if there's any truth to that. We haven't seen anything like that in court filings. But certainly, I wouldn't put it past the FBI. So I don't know. But what I think probably the bigger overarching thing is they want to sideline Trump in the next election. That is priority number one. This one came in from Patrick Parker. Says, I'm the dad. I'm the dad. Patrick Parker. Hopefully Patrick figured out the blurriness setting on YouTube. Thanks, Patrick, for sending that one in. Oh, no. Alexandra K8. Oh, man. Says, I'm stuck on the couch with a torn ACL. Oh, that hurts. Says, and this has been the best part of my day so far, so thank you. Well, thank you, Alexandra. Alexandra K8, get well soon, rest up. I never tore my ACL or anything like that, but my knee hurts just thinking about it. Ouch. Ouch. I'm sure that is not fun. So, hopefully it was a good story behind it, and hopefully, you scored the goal or whatever you did. But I wish you a very speedy recovery. Hopefully you're resting up, resting well. We're going to continue to do this show. And so I do hope you enjoy it as you heal up. And thank you for sending this in. Thanks for joining us on Locals. Sorry you're laid up. You'll be back in no time. That thing will heal up. You'll be back in no time. All right, so that was from Alexandra. This one came in from Steel Stargazer. Says, do you happen to have a list of Republicans who voted not to censure Schiff? Let me see how fast I can dig that up for you. Boom! There it is. Courtesy of John McGarvey. Nice teamwork from Kay Bean and John McGarvey. Clipping away. Here it is. Thank you for looking that up, guys. This one, look, here's 20 people. Armstrong, Reamer. We had somebody from Arizona named Juan Cisco Manny. Don't know who that is. Any other big names? Cole, Davidson, Fitzpatrick, Granger, Graves, Keene, Kiley from California, Kim, Lawler, Massey from Kentucky, McClintock, Simpson, Turner, Womack, Valado, a lot of California people. One person from Arizona. Thanks, John, for looking that up. Wow. American Dreamers here says Barnes thinks Joe pardons Trump and himself. Wow. That is a pretty bold prediction. Indeed. Barnes thinks Joe pardons Trump and himself. And after the election or before the election? Yeah, interesting take. That's why you got to follow Robert Barnes over at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Amazing group of people over there. And shout out to our friends at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. All right, and now let's say hello to our Twitter friends. And did you know that we now have a Twitter community? Did you know about this? I didn't know this was even a thing. But Twitter just launched this weekend. It's this communities tab on Twitter. So when you go over here, you can click communities. And we don't know what we're doing with this yet, but we just launched Watching the Watchers community on Twitter. And so it's a place that I think is an actual community. I'm still figuring it out exactly, but it's open, it's available. You can go on Twitter, just click that little community and search for it, Watching the Watchers, and join us if you want to. And it's a good way to pool together the community. So you guys can follow each other, follow friends, support each other's comments and all that stuff over there, which is fun. So we're going to figure out what to do with it. We're working on a ton of stuff behind the scenes, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So who is here? We've got some of our friends on Twitter. Al Holman says, Viva's great. Viva is great, no doubt about it. And we had one from Danny McWilliams says, what if they fail to convict Trump? What will the next move be? I see only one. I will not say it anywhere. All right, good call on that. I think I know where you're going with that. He says, hey, FBI, I know you're watching. Al says, Viva's great. Al Holman says, the question for Republican presidential candidates is, are you willing to get your hands dirty to clean the swamp? And will you be willing to be vilified for the rest of your life? A guy from the industry says a lawyer of the land is live. We're back in business. And I did miss you guys, honestly. I had a great time at the Genius Network event. It was a lot. It was I have just pages and pages of notes, tons of new ideas. I've got some really good relationships. Like I met some amazing other people who actually do some content stuff on other platforms. We've got some ideas on how we can work together. Very, very good stuff. Very, very fun. But I missed you. And man, we had a lot of catching up to do today. So I'm glad that we were able to get to it. But Christine Hilton is laughing at the discussion of Viva. You guys are the best. Thank you. Yeah, here are the people who didn't vote, who didn't censure Adam Schiff. Faces to names over there. And though that, my friends, all came in courtesy of our friends on Twitter. And I think we had a couple other super chats that came in. Thank you very much. Hey, Cat, we all just get along is here. Cat, we all just get along says, we agreed with what Rocky Water posted. Well, thank you, Kat. We all just get along. What did Rocky say? Here is Rocky. Here it is. Focus should be on the Biden impeachment. We have agreement on that. Yeah. Bring some attention to that. And a bad poet sent this one in. Says Trump doesn't need a pardon. He needs a fair day in court. I'd settle. Yeah. I mean, I would appreciate a fair Justice Department and a fair FBI. I mean, if Hillary didn't get prosecuted, why should Trump be prosecuted? That doesn't make any sense at all. Hey, and speaking of the Barnes, Viva Barnes, here's another one. This one came in courtesy of Geegum Geegum. Is that the Three Stooges? Is that what that is? Or is this just, three good looking, lawyers? I don't know. Three strapping young lads. It is the Three Stooges, isn't it, Geegum? Well, that's fair too. I guess what can you say about that? All right, my friends, that is it for us on the day. We are not done yet. If you are a member on YouTube or on Locals, stick around for the after party. YouTube friends, join us on Telegram. Grab the private Telegram group link, which is in the community tab section on YouTube. Just scroll on over there and join us. And my friends, if you're looking for some more content, we do member-only morning streams where we go through the dockets, we go through the congressional committee schedules, we take a look at the latest in the headlines, what's going on. There's a lot of additional details we go through there that you don't get here. We'd love it if you joined us as a member on YouTube or at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Also, don't forget to stay healthy. Take care of your bodies. Tell your parents and your siblings and your sisters and your kids and everybody to take care of their bodies with real organic superfood at fieldofgreens.com. They can save 15% off with code Robert when they check out. Also, if you like this Mindmap software, I get a lot of questions about it. spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap. You can sign up for a free account. I love this tool. I use it for all sorts of stuff. It's like an infinite canvas, and you can create your own free account. spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap. Big shout out to our mods and our meme smiths who mod down the fort for us, who have helped clip, and appreciate all of your help. Our friends, V Antikiss Prime, K Bean in the house, clipping away for us. Thank you, K Bean. Just Cause, Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, our friend Zulu, Beyond Geostars. We've got Zach Nichols, John Allen also helping out today. Thank you, Hunter's Crack Dealers here. Janek 909, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me. Shout out to our meme smiths. Nathan N810. Locals is our friend Geegum Geegum with the Three Stooges, Barnes, Viva, and Rob, and our friend Sleepy Dog Lee over on Twitter. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are back in business. It's Juneteenth. Hopefully you're celebrating whatever you do on this brand new holiday. But we are going to leave it there. We will be back tomorrow morning for our members. Members, stick around. We have an after party here that we're going to hang out on for a little bit. But if you don't join us, I hope to see you right back here tomorrow. Thank you for liking this video and subscribing and sharing it with a friend. And join us here tomorrow so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. It's going to be a beautiful week. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.